ETHOS.
This is a really exciting moment. If you've ever had an idea that's kind of festered for years and you just like, okay, now or never, let's do this thing. Well, for me, Ethos Radio is that idea. I've been thinking about a different kind of concept for radio, one that would promote health and wellness spiritually, mentally, and physically, and play popular music. And that's what Ethos Radio is. And so I am so excited to announce that the Ethos Radio app is in the App Store, Apple and Google Play. I would be in your debt if you would download it now, check it out, and let me know what you think. And I want to introduce you to a friend of mine who is hosting a new podcast that's featured on the Ethos app, and her name is Lisa Williams. Welcome to the Creative Coach Cast. I'm Paul Goldsmith, an entrepreneur and creative coach on the show committed to helping you transform your creative ideas into a reality. Lisa and I and our families have been friends for years. Lisa, welcome back to the Creative Coach Cast.
For a long time, we've been friends, and we have this really great friendship that stood the test of time, and we like working on projects together. Well, Paul's been kind of pushing on me because he knows that I care about spiritual stuff. I care about healing. I feel called, for lack of a better word. I feel propelled towards creating safe places where people can heal and grow, including me. I want to be first on the list. At least I want to be on the list of people who can heal and grow. And I want to do that in community. I'm curious and I'm hungry for spiritual soundness and healing.
Well, I appreciate, Lisa, you hosting this podcast because it's really important to me. I think with your radio experience being a broadcaster that you're uniquely gifted with a skill set that translates well to audio, which is a podcast. And through your life experience, going through a lot of trauma, of which we'll probably unpack throughout the season, that you can take people on a journey of healing and wherever those individuals are.
The name of this podcast is Threads. It comes from something inside my own spirit where I have said many times, not because I heard somebody else say it, but because of what I see inside me and what I experience. I experience these threads. I'm thinking about something, or I'm praying about something, or something's going on in my life, and something in front of me, it almost like presents itself. I'll see something, I call it a thread. Like maybe I'm looking for a job and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? And I'm getting Starbucks and I meet a friend and they're like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm looking for a job. They're like, oh, we just heard of a job that's open. Let me call them real quick. And it's like, there's this thread that's presented to me and I have a choice. You can pull this thread or not. I can say, oh no, that's okay. Or I can go, yeah, I want to know more about that. You know, I can then go have a meeting and all of a sudden I'm working for a company and like, well, that just came out of nowhere. But there was a thread that I pulled. I had a choice. Well, I see these threads all the time. Whether it's somebody mentions a book or somebody says they've been on a spiritual weekend, and I am a curious spiritual person. So I'm like, let me pull on that thread, you know? And so you look, I mean, people have said this to me many times, but maybe you've never heard this metaphor or analogy. And that is that life is like a tapestry. And you look at this beautiful tapestry piece, and you're like, oh, look at it. It's so beautiful. But you turn it over and it is a mess of threads. You're like, wow, the master weaver put together something that I can't even comprehend, but I am experiencing it. I'm in the tapestry. I don't understand it, but I'm in it. So a wise one, I would think a wise person would look for threads and pull the threads. So here's the idea that I ran by Paul. We have like these arguments that we call them conversations, but I think if people observed us, they'd call them arguments.
So I don't know what it's like to have a sibling, but I believe this is the closest thing to it, where deep down you really like the person, but you can't help but, give them a hard time, argue all the time, a little too much. But if I could pull on a thread, we're both similar in some ways where we're a fan of something, we got to tell everybody we know about it. One of the things to pull on that thread that you told me about a few years ago, you read a book called The Road Back to You. And it was all about the Enneagram personality test, about teaching people just about the different facets of individuals' personalities. And you're like, you're definitely a 3. Read this. And the point of the book is not just to read all about yourself, but it really is to learn about what your personality looks like when you're healthy, and then what it looks like when you're unhealthy and what you can do about that. And I think you were gently, as my much older sister, you were kind of saying, hey, watch out for your own unhealthy side. So you literally sent me the chapter. And at the end of the chapter, it had some resources on how to stay healthy with your type of driven 3 personality that always has to win and achieve and all of these things. And it checked every box for me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely me. Oh, for real. And I got to tell you, through that self-discovery, I mean, it was the best thing ever to understand my marriage, my most important relationship in my life, because understand that my wife has a different personality and she sees things differently than I see. And it all made sense. That has been a part of my healing, of just understanding what it looks like to have a healthy mindset. I'm constantly learning and then trying to pass on what I learn. And through this became the idea for this ETHOS app. And then out of that, we've got to have a podcast that helps tie it all together. And you came up with the name, Threads.
Threads, yeah. And I was reluctant to say yes to host the podcast, only because I just know that I struggle with a lot and I don't feel like I'm the smartest person or the best to help people. You know, sometimes I just want to hide. I want to go away. I don't want to like lift myself up as like, hey, I'm great and I should be a podcast host. And because I have all the answers and all the connections. No, I feel inadequate. I feel wounded. I often feel like I'm not enough. But through tears, confessing all that to Paul, he basically said to me, challenged me, do you have experience as a broadcaster? Yes, 30 plus years. Do you care about people's spiritual health? Do you care about healing? Yes. He's like, do it. So here I am. I'll probably cry again to Paul on a phone call before this project is done. But here I am. And I wanted to bring up 2 things real quick. One, right back at you, Paul, the little brother that I never wanted, but I've got. Right back at you, man. There was a thread that I saw in Paul's kitchen. I had been traveling profoundly, doing events, homeschooling on the road, my sons, doing big fundraisers, very tired, really burned out, really on fumes. And Paul and Marianne and all the kids, everybody in the kitchen making breakfast, he hands me a book called Margin by Dr. Richard Swinson. He says, somebody gave this to my wife, but I think you need it more. And it was life-changing. Margin was my word of the year for 2020. I look at everything in my life through the lens of margin now. Life-changing. It was a thread. It was presented to me. I could have said no. I could have said, no, I'll keep that for Marianne. I'm good. But I took it and it changed my life. We could have called this podcast a million different things. But what felt honest for me was threads, that we would just pull on a thread from the podcast to create the next podcast. So if you'll thread with us, every episode is going to lead to your next episode. And you may think, no, I wanted you to pull a different thread. Well, you can tell us and we can rethread. We can go back. We're just going to be about the connecting points of our lives, how we are all connected. I pray, I hope, I desire that there's a thread in one of these podcasts that's meaningful to you.
Thank you for taking this experiment. I don't know if it's going to work, if anybody will listen. I hope people do, but some of the best programming advice that I ever got in radio, you've got to create something that you would actually enjoy listening to. And that's it for me. So if nobody else gets anything out of this, I'm excited about it because we're all on a journey and different people have different things to offer. So I know that, selfishly, I'll personally benefit from these threads and conversations about the things that connect us all. I'm excited for the journey ahead and we don't know where this will end, but that's the thing about spirituality. It's a mystery. It's not some quick fix. It's a journey. I'm excited to continue down that journey along with you and anybody else that wants to join us for this.
So we don't want to belabor the point. I feel like we just did a really good heart dump. And so we want these to be, they'll be whatever length they are, but around 20 minutes. So it's just consumable for you as we progress. But I thought that a good place to start would be to pick someone who's way smarter than Paul and
that's easy to do.
Way smarter than me. And it's someone that crossed both Paul and my path. His name is Derek Watson, and he's a trainer in what's called Encounter. It's like a 4-day training. Maybe you've got things in your life you wish were different, but you can't seem to jump the hurdle. You can't seem to find the answers. You just kind of hit the same roadblock over and over. Oh, wow. Encounter training is incredible for that. What do you think about that, Paul? Like we just kind of start with Derek and let him kind of be the spool. And then we just go, okay, let's thread out of whatever Derek says. How do you feel about that?
I love that idea because he has a way of pushing people's buttons, of asking provoking questions that lead you on a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
If you realize, oh, I do have some unhealed trauma. He's a master of that. And so I think that would be a perfect first guest.
Will you just journey with us? Can we just be curious together? There's so many things we don't understand, yet we're all participating in them.
What are you waiting for? Download the Ethos Radio app now and give Threads Episode 1 a listen. Would love to hear what you think. You can reach out on Instagram or Twitter. I'm at Paul J. Goldsmith. Give me your feedback. This is a work in progress. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening.